All that's going to depend on the federal government and other provincial governments like Ontario. I mean, Doug Ford is no more conservative than fly to the moon. And then they had the infrastructure all ready to go to hold a referendum. Here, they've gone out, they got 177,000 signatures, they're going to hold a referendum, and if they win, well, they're going to expect somebody else to do the heavy lifting.
Journalism and commentary 1 year anniversary.
I don't believe journalism being funded by the government is the solution.
You have to rebuild the foundation.
You have to retell the story.
Market conservative
other news that actually matters.
I hence wanted to ask, do you think they should answer their questions, especially if they're politically charged?
Hello everybody. I had the opportunity to interview Lorne Gunter last month while I was in Edmonton. Lorne Gunter is a veteran journalist in Alberta with decades of experience, and I had the opportunity to talk with him about the Alberta independence movement, which I believe is the biggest story in not only Alberta but also the country, and a story that Mark Carney cannot afford to ignore, especially as this story reaches a breaking point with organizers saying they have over 300,000 signatures to trigger a referendum. I also asked him what risks this poses to both Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre. And given that I've spoken to Jeff Rath, who supports independence, and Thomas Lukasuk, who opposes independence, I thought it would also be nice to speak to a journalist and columnist who covers this issue to get his take. It was a fascinating conversation. You do not want to miss it. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, well, I'm here with the great Lorne Gunter. Thank you for sitting down with me.
You're most welcome.
I want to talk about the kind of maybe political ramifications for Danielle Smith. We'll start with Danielle Smith. Mm-hmm. Danielle Smith, she ran, I remember when she ran for leader, she wasn't a separatist, but she had a message that I think appealed to some people who were independentists, the Alberta Sovereignty Act, etc. Now she's the premier. She is the premier of a province with a large economy. She's trying to get some stuff done with the federal government. I interviewed her in September, and I asked her about independence, and she said, I see my role as getting to a place where we don't need to have a referendum vote. Meanwhile, there's a large percentage, and I don't know what the specific number is, but I've spoken to several people that are Alberta conservatives, they vote UCP, that are her base, that want independence. And so therefore, I think it's interesting what they've been able to do in Alberta, where they have the Citizens Initiative, where she's able to say, there can be a referendum, but it's not on me. So how do you think she's handled this, and do you think there are any risks for her as this happens?
There's enormous risks, but I think she's handled it as well as she could, because you're exactly right. A significant percentage of her base are separatists, or at least very sympathetic to separation.
Yes.
And if she missteps, then she can anger them, and then she won't be the premier anymore. There'll be like when Wild Rose broke off from the Conservatives back in the 2000s. There would be something like that happen.
Yeah.
And the only way, still, I think the only way that a Conservative party, in this case the UCP, loses the government in Alberta is if they split and allows the NDP to come up the middle. That's what happened in 2015, and it could happen again. So she has to have that in mind. She has to have her relationships with the federal government, who she's trying to get to agree to a pipeline. I mean, it is quite. It's not only a juggling act. She's walking on a high wire while she's doing the juggling.
I was speaking to somebody recently, and I'll say two things. First, yeah, that's interesting. But I was speaking to somebody who was telling me they're worried that an independence movement, that it could lead the NDP to win. And she was telling me this because for two reasons. One of them, Danielle said it's going to have to come out much more strongly in favor of federalism, and that's going to turn off some people. And second of all, there could be a sort of elbows up have a vibe in Alberta with the Conservatives who are federalists, and the NDP is able politically to have a much stronger pro-federalist message. So do you think that this whole independence movement could cost her political career?
Yeah, for sure. It could cost the province a pipeline. There'll be an awful lot of oil investors who might be interested in getting involved in a pipeline, who wouldn't if they thought Alberta was going to go heavily separatist. Take a look at what happened in Quebec in '76. The Parti Québécois won, and the economy collapsed. There was this huge out-migration of talented and moneyed people. Prior to '76, people don't remember this, but Montreal was the financial capital of Canada. And after '76, it was Toronto. And Toronto owes an enormous debt to the Parti Québécois for having made it the center of power in the country. And, you know, Alberta has become quite powerful. Ottawa has to recognize what our contribution is and stop spitting on us from a great height over things they don't like us doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, I'm not sure I'm ready yet.
Right. I see what you mean. Pierre Poilievre, do you think that there are political implications for him, especially now that he's an Alberta MP? How should he go about handling this movement?
Oh, yeah, he really has a problem that way because the vast majority of his caucus are going to be Federalists.
Right.
So he can't become too enamored of Alberta independence. I don't think he is. Everything he says is, no, I just want to give Alberta a better deal within a strong confederation. I think that's what most Albertans would want. But most of them have given up hope that that's going to happen, or many of them, maybe not most, but many of them have given up hope that Alberta will ever get a better deal within confederation. And that's where the separatist sentiment comes from.
What are your overall thoughts on what we're seeing with Alberta independence?
Well, I'm not surprised by it. We saw a poll came out yesterday or the day before from Malaysia that said Alberta separation is at its highest level of public support in 5 years. Well, I guarantee you 5 years ago, it was because Justin Trudeau was the Prime Minister. I guarantee you if Justin Trudeau had run the Liberal Party in the last election and they had won, there'd be a huge separatist movement now. But it's not that Albertans love Mark Carney, but they're not as, he doesn't irritate them anywhere near as much as Justin Trudeau did. But I think the separatist movement, while I have I have a lot of sympathy for their arguments that Alberta contributes far more to Confederation than it gets out, and yet still everybody in central Canada looks down on us as the Hicks and Rubes of Confederation. I have a lot of sympathy for that. I think they're going about it the wrong way.
Tell me more about that. Why do you think this?
Well, take a look at the example in Quebec. They started off with a political party. The political party tried to get members of the National Assembly elected. Then they tried to form a government, which they did. And then they had the infrastructure all ready to go to hold a referendum. Here, they've gone out, they got 177,000 signatures, they're going to hold a referendum, and if they win, well, they're going to expect somebody else to do the heavy lifting. That, to me, is the lazy way to separate. And I think, as a result, it won't work. You don't have a party infrastructure in every riding in the province that can demonstrate to voters that they have good people who are ready to govern an independent country. You just have a bunch of people going around saying, sign this petition and we'll get a referendum and then we'll separate. It seems to me that's the quick and easy way out, and it's not going to satisfy most people. I also think they made a mistake by going to Washington to talk to Trump or Trump's people because, while they like Trump and Trump's people, I don't think Albertans care for him much more than any other Canadians do.
What personally, as a columnist, a veteran columnist, and someone who's covered politics for years, do you think it's a good idea? Do you think Alberta should separate from Canada? Or
at this point, as I said, I have sympathy for the argument. I don't think that the separatists are ready yet to take us out of Confederation. It's an enormous task. Think about it. I once told my wife I wasn't going to change banks because it was too much work. The credit cards and the mortgages and the car loans and all the rest, and all that has to be changed.
Yeah.
Well, that's trivial compared to what would have to be changed if you withdrew from Confederation. You'd have to divvy up the national debt. You'd have to, and these guys, current separatists, think we wouldn't have to take any debt because we've been net contributors to Confederation. I think that's a legitimate argument. But Ottawa's not going to think that's a legitimate argument, and many other Canadians are not going to do that. So there have to be negotiations over debt. There have to be negotiations over Canada pension plan, over military assets. Like Edmonton has one of the largest bases in Canada. Do we get to keep that? Yesterday there was a big fuss from the First Nations in Alberta that you can't separate because that would invalidate their treaty. Well, I'm not sure that's true, but it is one more thing you got to negotiate, right? And so it's an enormous task, and I don't think they're ready for it yet.
If there's anyone, whether it's Mark Carney, whether it's the Conservatives, whether it's Albertans, that you could get you have a warning to about all of this, who would it be and why, and what would your warning be?
Well, I mean, I think I would just repeat what I'd said earlier in that I think an independence movement has to have a concrete structure. Mm-hmm. You can't just hold a referendum and then say, aha, we won, so somebody else has to do all the heavy lifting. You have to start by finding people in every riding who are prepared to waive your standard. You have to start by electing 6 or 8 MLAs and then hope that you can elect the government. And then when you are the government, you have to make the case that it's time for a referendum to separate and that you know what's involved in actually negotiating independence. And I think they're just sort of one-off, like I said, they're looking for the easy or lazy way out of Confederation.
Do you have any predictions for how this will go? How do you think this will happen, and if there is a referendum in October?
It will. A lot of it will depend on what the campaign is like.
Okay.
But my guess is that independence will get 30 to 35% support. And
I mean, even after a referendum, I don't think this issue is going away. It's going to continue being.
Yeah.
So, I guess, how do you see the future of Alberta as a province within Canada being in like maybe the next 5 to 10 years?
All that's going to depend on the federal government and other provincial governments like Ontario. I mean, Doug Ford is no more conservative than fly to the moon, but he angers Albertans every once in a while with his stance, and then the next time he'll turn around and he'll say something that people like. So Central Canada simply has to understand that Alberta is not satisfied with the current arrangement, and they have to be mindful of that. They have to make amendments in the way they do things so that Alberta is not unhappy. Alberta now is almost more populated than BC. We don't have the same number of seats that BC has. Those sorts of things have to be dealt with much more quickly.
Yeah.
Well, this sums up our conversation. I hope you liked it. If you did, like this video, comment your thoughts down below, subscribe, and consider getting a paid channel membership because unlike the legacy media, we take zero money from the government. Thank you and God bless.